everyone, welcome to Statecraft IS Academy. Let's get started with the current affairs. Our first topic of discussion is Shenzhou 12. So Shenzhou 12, it's a manned mission of China and it is the third of the 11th missions that is needed to complete the China's first permanent space station. The space station is named Tiangong Space Station and among this 11, 4 will be manned missions. And Shenzhou 12, it is made up of 3 sections, an orbiter module, a return module and a propelling module. And it will carry 3 astronauts to the orbiting Tiangong space station, and these astronauts will test the module's technologies including its life support system. Moreover, the men will also be monitored for how they fare in the space physically and psychologically for an extended period of time. This Shenzhou 12, it is China's 7th manned mission to space and the first during the construction of China's space station. Next, we'll talk about the Tiangong space station. So, this is a planned Chinese permanent space station to be placed in the low Earth orbit. And the operations of the station will be controlled by Beijing Aerospace Command and Control Center in China. This will be a 66-ton multi-module Tiangong station and it is said to be operational for at least 10 years. This space station will roughly be 1/5 of the mass of the International Space Station. Next, we'll discuss what International Space Station is. So, it is a space station or a habitable artificial satellite. So, space stations are also on habitable artificial satellites which are placed in low Earth orbits. And they serve as a microgravity and space environment research laboratory in which crew members conduct experiments. So it is basically a research laboratory in space where crew members conduct experiments in biology, human biology, physics, astronomy, meteorology and other fields. So the 5 different space agencies which are involved in the International Space Station are, this is an important fact for prelims. So first is NASA, then Russia's Roscosmos, the European Space Agency, Canadian Space Agency and Japan's Aerospace Exploration Agency. So this ISS is also considered to be the most expensive single item ever constructed. So talking about the space station, so it is basically a spacecraft which is capable of supporting crew members, which is designed to remain in the space for an extended period of time and for other spacecrafts to dock. Talking about the significance, the space station is essential for collecting meaningful scientific data, especially for biological experiments. It also provides platforms for greater number and length of scientific studies than available on other space vehicles. Also, the space stations are used to study the effect of long-term space flight on human body. Next, we'll discuss about the flag satyagraha. So, this is also called Jhanda Satyagraha and it was held in Jabalpur and Nagpur in 1923. It is a campaign for peaceful civil disobedience that focused on exercising the right and freedom to host the national flag and challenged the legitimacy of the British rule in India through the defiance of the laws which prohibited the hosting of the national flag and also restricted civil freedoms. And this satyagraha actually shook the British government and also infused a new life into the freedom movement. The arrest of the nationalist protesters demanding the right to hoist the flag caused an outcry across India, especially as Gandhi had been recently arrested. Also, the nationalist leaders such as Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Jamnalal Bajaj, Chakravarti Rajagopalacharya and the Dr. Rajendra Prasad and Vinoba Bhave organized the revolt and thousands of people from different regions travelled to Nagpur and other parts of the central provinces to participate in civil disobedience. In the end, the British negotiated an agreement with the Patel and other Congress leaders permitting the protesters to conduct their march unhindered and obtaining the release of all those who were arrested. Next, we'll talk about Public Accounts Committee. So, this Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament had decided its agenda for the following year. So, these committees are basically very important from prelims point of view. This whole committee chapter in Lakshmikant, it's very important in the terms of knowing the members of the committee whether the members are only from Lok Sabha or if they are from Rajya Sabha as well, and how many members are from Lok Sabha and how many members are from Rajya Sabha. Also, the chief function of the committee and who is the chairman, also the term of the members. So in this case, this Public Accounts Committee, it was introduced in 1921 after its first mention in the Government of India Act 1919, which is also called the Montagu-Chelmsford Reform or the Montford Reforms. So this Public Accounts Committee, it is formed every year with a strength of not more than 22 members. Remember, it is formed every year and the strength is not more than 22 members, of which 15 are from Lok Sabha and 7 from Rajya Sabha. And the term of the members is 1 year. The chairman is appointed by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. And since 1967, the chairman of the committee is selected from the opposition. And the chief function is to examine the audit report of the Comptroller and Auditor General after it is led in the Parliament. So talking about its limitations, it cannot intervene in the questions of policy. And also it can keep a tab on the expenses only after they are incurred. So basically they have no power to limit the expenses. Also it cannot intervene in the matters of day-to-day administrations, and any recommendation that the committee makes is only advisory. So they can be easily ignored by the ministers. And it is not vested with the powers of disallowance of the expenditures by the department. And being an executive body, it cannot issue an order. And only the Parliament can take a final decision on its findings. Next, we'll talk about the UNESCO Science Report. So, the latest edition of the UNESCO Science Report was released. And so this is basically a global monitoring report, and it is published every 5 years by United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, that is UNESCO. And the report monitors the trends in science governance worldwide to identify which development path countries are following. And the latest edition was published with the title The Race Against Time for Smarter Development. So key findings relating to India are relating to India's investment in research. So the gross domestic expenditure on research has been stagnant at 0.7% of the GDP for years. However, in absolute terms, the research expenditure has increased. And talking about the density of the scientists and the engineers, so in 1990, the density of the scientists and engineers engaged in research and development in India per 1,000 of the labor force stood at 10. And this has now only marginally increased to just 11. Next, research and development by the government and the private sector. So research and development in the government sector has been declining steadily since 2015. On the other hand, the share of the private business enterprise in research and development has increased to 42%. Next, we'll talk about the ASEAN's Defense Ministers Meeting Plus. So recently, the Defense Minister addressed the 8th ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus. First, we'll discuss what ASEAN is. So, it is an association of Southeast Asian nations, and it is a regional organization which was established to promote political and social stability amidst the rising tensions among the Asia-Pacific's post-colonial states. And its secretariat is in Indonesia, Jakarta. And the member countries include Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Brunei, Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia. Remember, India is not a member of the ASEAN nations. Next, talking about the ADMM Plus. So, consistent with the ADMM guiding principles of open and outward looking, the second ADMM in Singapore adopted a concept paper to establish ADMM Plus. So, this ADMM Plus, it's a platform for ASEAN and its 8 dialogue partners to strengthen security and defense cooperation for peace, stability and development in the regions. So its members, these 8 dialogue partners include Australia, China, India, Japan, New Zealand, Republic of Korea, which is South Korea, Russia and USA, where they are collectively known as Plus countries. And they aim to promote mutual trust and confidence between the defense establishments through greater dialogue and transparency. And also they have agreed 5 areas for practical cooperation, which include maritime security, counter-terrorism, humanitarian assistance, and disaster relief, peacekeeping operations, and military medicine. Next, we'll discuss about the corporatization of Ordnance Factory Board. So, addressing a long pending reform, the Union Cabinet has approved a plan to corporatize the Ordnance Factory Board. So, after this Ordnance Factory Board will be dissolved and it will be replaced by 7 new defense public sector undertakings. Each undertaking will have a specific manufacturing role. The 41 factories under the Ordnance Factory Board will be subsumed under one or the other of the 7 new companies. And these all will be 100% government owned public sector undertakings, and there would be no change in the service conditions of the Ordnance Factory Board employees. Talking about the significance of corporatization of Ordnance Factory Board, so it will make it more productive and profitable. It will deepen the specialization in the product range, also enhance competitiveness. This will also improve the quality and the cost efficiency. These are basically the points relating to privatization or corporatization. So it can be used in other related questions as well. Talking about the Ordnance Factory Board, so it was an umbrella body of 41 ordnance factories, and the first Indian ordnance factory was set up in the year 1712 by the Dutch company as a gunpowder factory in West Bengal. And in 1775, the British authorities accepted the establishment of the Board of Ordnance in Fort William, Kolkata. And this marked the official beginning of the Army Ordnance in India. This Ordnance Factory Board is currently a subordinate office of the Ministry of Defence, and it provides a major chunk of weapons, ammunition, supplies for Indian Armed Forces, paramilitary forces, and the police forces. And its headquarters is in Kolkata, West Bengal. Next, we'll talk about the Children and Digital Dump Sites report. So, this report has been released by WHO, that is the World Health Organization, and its key findings include that more than 18 million children and adolescents working at e-waste dump sites in low and middle income countries are potentially at the risk of severe health hazards. And they face risk due to discarded electronic devices or e-waste being dumped from high income countries. So talking about e-waste, so e-waste or electronic waste is basically referred to as the end of life or discarded electronic appliances. It includes their components, consumables, parts and spares. Talking about the concerns, this e-waste contains over 1000 precious metals and other substances like gold, copper, mercury, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. The processing of this e-waste is basically done in low income countries which do not have the proper safeguarding regulations, and thus make the process even more dangerous. And children are basically preferred at these dump sites because of their small and dexterous hands. And several women also work there. The processing of e-waste exposes them as well as their children to these toxins, which can lead to premature births and stillbirths. The hazardous impact of working at such sites is also experienced by families and communities that reside in the vicinity of these e-waste dump sites. And also the volume of the e-waste generated is surging rapidly across the globe. About 53.6 million tons of the e-waste was generated in 2019. Only 17.4% of this waste was processed in formal recycling facilities, and the rest of it was dumped in low or middle income countries for illegal processing by the informal workers. Also, there is a likely increase in the e-waste in the coming years because of the rise in the number of smartphones and computers. All for today, guys. If you like the video, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.